Now, Sheila Mercier, this is your life, and Yorkshire, of course, has a very special place in your affections, not only because of Emmerdale Farm, but because you were born here in Hull and married here in Hornsey on March the 25th, 1951, and even the first night of your honeymoon was spent in the romantic bliss of Bradford.
But the very next morning, our young puppy got us both into very hot water with the landlady.
Not at home in Shepperton, of course, but in Yorkshire tonight, your husband, Peter. Peter, taking your dog on honeymoon to Bradford.
Yes, well, it wasn't really much of a honeymoon. I don't mean it that way. What I mean is that I was in theatrical digs. And anyway, Sheila joined me in the theatrical digs, and she brought along our little dog called Prince, who actually slept in the same room as we were. The next morning, the landlady brought our breakfast in bed, which was super. And when she left the room, unfortunately, Sheila knocked over the jug containing the hot water, and it, of course, soaked all the bedclothes. The landlady came back to collect the breakfast things, looked at the soaked bedclothes, and then looked at our poor little dog. And, of course, we were chucked out.
And from that somewhat soggy opening scene, your marriage was destined for a long and happy run, 34 years, in fact, in which you've become mother, and just 2 years ago, grandmother. Now, in fact, you couldn't wait to set your eyes on your grandson as soon as you got news of his birth. Instantly, you boarded a plane from Leeds to dash to the hospital in London.
You reached the hospital all right, and promptly became a patient yourself.
Your son, Nigel. So, Nigel, what happened when the proud grandmother here got to the hospital?
Well, she'd been feeling rather unwell for some time, and when she reached the hospital, she collapsed with a perforated ulcer, and they operated straight away. The doctor said she was very lucky that she was in a hospital. If she'd not been in the hospital when it happened, she might not have recovered.
But recover she did, and I suppose that she immediately made a beeline to see her grandson.
Unfortunately, no. For medical reasons, they weren't allowed to visit each other whilst they were in the wards, so she had to wait another 2 weeks before she could see David.
Well, Sheila, although he's only 2, young David is a special fan of yours these days, as of course is his mum, Rosina, and David never fails to sign off your appearances in Emmerdale Farm in his own special way. Bye-bye, David. Well, Sheila Mercier, this is your life, and you bowed into the world yourself on New Year's Day at the family home in Beverley High Road in the Yorkshire seaport of Hull, where your late father, Herbert, was in shipping, and your late mother, an amateur dramatics enthusiast, with her own group, called what, Sheila? Fanny Rick's
Bright Young Things.
Well, being a bright young thing yourself, there you are, aged 12, it wasn't long before you took to the boards. And here you are on a Christmas production at St. Esselburger School, Hornsey. And at home, on family occasions, Christmas and birthdays, your mother used to put on concerts in which the whole family took part.
And that's when you and I, Sheila, first became stage-struck.
And many is the audience he's had rolling in the aisle since those days, because that famous brother of yours became a legend of stage farce, Brian Ricks, and with him his famous actress wife, Elsa Gray. And with them, your sister Nora. And Brian, our viewers now, of course, will begin to understand a bit more clearly the connection between Sheila and the Whitehall farces, which were quite a family concern, right?
Yes, actually, too much so, because that's why Sheila had to change her name. You see, when she joined the Whitehall in about 1955 in Dry Rot, she was Sheila Ricks, but then she had to become Sheila Mercier. And it wasn't an attempt to be rather grand and old-fashioned like Mrs. Patrick Campbell or something like that. It was merely the fact that in the company already there was Elspeth, of course, my wife. My sister-in-law, Rhoda, did all the set designs. Peter Mercier, that was already in the company. The company's name was Ricks Theatrical Productions. The partners in that company were Herbie Ricks, my father, Bertie Ricks, my uncle. So we decided that nepotism had had its day, and that Sheila simply had to change her name. So she became Sheila Mercier. But the point is that this story is that it doesn't matter nowadays whether she's Sheila Ricks or Sheila Mercier. Everybody seems to know her as Annie Sugden.
And it was in 1960 that you and Brian got together in a feature film in the style of one of those farces. Here you've smuggled yourselves into a girls' school in search of an escaped parrot in The Night We Got the Bird.
Good heavens, how extraordinary. I could have sworn I saw two girls.
Sure, Miss Hawksworth, none of my girls would do a thing like that.
Well, and I'm not so certain. What about that incident in the potting shed? With the gardener?
Sheila, when you left drama school in 1939, the start of your career was, in fact, with that legendary actor-manager, Sir Donald Wolfett. Now, you were thrilled beyond belief when the great man selected you to join his Shakespeare touring company. But a year later, you had no hesitation in quitting your newly launched acting career to help with the war effort and serve throughout the whole of the war as a section officer in the WAFs. Now, when the time comes for demob, you're stationed at Middleton St. George Aerodrome near Darlington and face the prospect of lugging your bags and belongings by bus and 2 separate train journeys to group headquarters in Hucknall in Nottinghamshire. But out of the blue on that day in 1946, you get an offer that has you walking on air.
Look, Sheila, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll organise a plane and we'll fly you to Hucknall.
That was 39 years ago. You haven't seen him from that day to this. Former RAF squadron leader and later BBC producer, Ronnie Marsh. Ronnie, it sounds like an offer that Sheila couldn't refuse.
Well, Eamon, it was a difference probably between an hour and a half and a day and a half in those days when I was travel. So, no, she didn't. You see, I had met Sheila soon after she arrived at Middleton because, amongst other things, I was entertainment officer and I used to organise the station dances, you know, beer and bands. And then when I found out that Sheila had, in fact, been in the theatre before she joined the services, well, we immediately set about a production of, you remember, Noel Coward's Private Lives, with Sheila playing the female starring role of Amanda.
And who did you cast as the leading man?
I'll give you 3 guesses.
Thank you, Ronnie Marsh. That's a surprise for him. I haven't seen it myself for ages. Now, though the war was over, there were, of course, many thousands of Allied troops still in Europe, and you joined the Combined Services Entertainment Unit, specially set up to put on shows for them. Christmas Eve, 1946, in the middle of one of the most bitterly cold winters on record, finds you at the headquarters of the Army of the Ruhr. Your billet is a freezing little room at a local inn.
And Sheila, it was in that very room a brand new drink was invented, the cough drop cocktail.
The roommate who invented that cocktail with you 39 years ago, actress Christine Russell. Christine, what was the cough drop cocktail?
Well, Eamon, the point was at that time there was a great shortage of everything except for some unknown reason, gin. And we had plenty of gin. But the trouble was that we had nothing to go with it. But at that time, Sheila and I both had the most appalling colds. Well, I mean, who didn't in that winter? So we had a large supply of Owbridge's lung tonic. So we put the two together, and between them they made a smashing drink, I can tell you. They warmed our bodies, they lifted our spirits, and we had a marvellous Christmas Eve.
Thank you, Christine Russell. Back in Britain, you join your brother Brian's own rep company and meet Peter here. There you are on stage together for the very first time. In Bridlington in 1950, a production of Noel Coward's Present Laughter still brings a smile to the now famous face of your leading man. And we join him in his dressing room just before going on stage in Me and My Girl, Captain Peacock in television's Are You Being Served? Frank Thornton.
Yes, Eamon, a smile does occasionally cross this face of mine. And perhaps what I'm wearing, Sheila, will bring a smile to your face. This extremely tasteful dressing gown is the one I wore, or one of the ones I wore in that production 35 years ago at Bridlington. When you and I played husband and wife, Gary and Liz Essendine in Present Laughter. Gary, as you remember, wore several gaudy dressing gowns. He was, if I may use the expression, a bit of a peacock. And if you look at this photograph, you'll see there it is. There's the dressing gown. And you and I trying to be, we were in our 20s, weren't we? Trying to be suave, sophisticated, middle-aged, Noel-cowed West End types. I seem to remember that the local paper gave you a better notice than it gave me. But never mind. I mean, your brother was the boss, so I couldn't complain, could I? They were happy times, Sheila. Somebody tells me that you've left the theatre and gone into farming, but I'm sure they must have got their facts a bit awry. However, Sheila, whatever you do, I'm sure you'll do with great style. And I'm sorry I can't be with you tonight, but duty calls. Goodbye.
Thank you, Frank Thornton at the Adelphi Theatre. From Rep in Bridlington, Sheila, you moved to Huddersfield, where in May 1952 you appeared in a play with an actress who, unknown to the two of you at the time, was just a couple of years later to become the toast of the British cinema in Genevieve. 33 years on from your stage appearance together, that unfailingly delightful star of stage and screen, Dinah Sheridan. Dinah, quite a sentimental journey back for you to Yorkshire.
Yes, it certainly was. Do you remember, Sheila, we were in a play together called Sweet Alice?
Yes, I do.
In Huddersfield.
Yes.
And then you made that wonderful trip back to your native Yorkshire into Emmerdale Farm. I really must congratulate you on 1,000 episodes. I think it's simply wonderful. And to keep up that standard over a long-running series, congratulations, Sheila.
Thank you, Dinah Sheridan. Well, Sheila, it was during those early rep days you met someone also building the foundations of a career, which many years later was to make him a favorite television comedy character.
Hello, Sheila. It's very nice to have me with you today. Hey, you remember we do pantomime together? It was called Boobs in the Wood. Ole!
Yes, favorite of millions was Manuel and Faulty Towers, but first on stage with you 37 years ago, Andrew Sachs. Andrew, that was Manuel talking about the panto. You mean Babes in the Wood, surely?
No, it really was called Boobs in the Wood. We did it on television from the Whitehall Theatre. Do you remember?
Yes, I
About
do.
25 years ago?
Yes, yes.
But in fact, you go back longer than that, the pair of you.
Indeed we do, yes. When I first came out of drama school, my very first job was as assistant stage manager at Bexhill-on-Sea. Sheila was very nice to me as one of the leading ladies of the company, and it was Sheila and people like Sheila who were really the first to demonstrate to me the meaning of discipline in the theatre and professionalism. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Andrew Sachs. In the mid-50s, Sheila, following the birth of your son Nigel here, you and Peter moved to London and began a long association with your brother Brian in his famous Whitehall farces. Simple Spy Man, One for the Pot, Chase Me Comrade. For more than a decade, audiences were rolling in the aisles, and for several more years, you had equal success at the Garrick Theatre in farces such as Stand By Your Bedouin, Uproar in the House, and Let Sleeping Wives Lie. Now, in those farces, Sheila, including a couple of films, you appeared with a wealth of comedy talent, although not here tonight in person. You'll see they remember you in their own special way.
Hello, Adam. Hello, Tina. I know the secret. I know the secret.
Will you shut up? Hello, Sheila. That awful bird puts me in mind of that film we did. Remember? What was it called? I know, The Night We Got the Bird. Well, if we didn't, we jolly well ought to have. Hello, someone come.
Hello, Sheila, darling. Uproar in the house we did together, didn't we? Bit of an uproar going on here, too. Excuse me, somebody coming.
Do you remember Chase Me Comrade? All those double takes. There's a comrade after me now, excuse me.
Cheers, Sheila.
Hello, Sheila. You've been chased many times in Chase Me Comrade. But seriously, out on the farm, you've never done cow splatting, have you? Now, cow splatting is stamping in cow pats. Like that. And so from the Benny Hill show and all the cast, Sheila, we salute you. Here, Benny.
Oh, hello, Sheila. Just a little bit of over-the-top acting to remind you when we were together in Uproar on the House at the Farce Theatre. The Whitehall Theatre. Do you remember that set where they had all those doors, and every time you opened one, there was usually someone behind who shouldn't have been there? And then, of course, the unexpected happened. What you do for your chums?
Still wiping pie from his eye, Nicholas Parsons. Nicholas, I know, of course, that you bring love from Irene Handel, Derek Royal, Dennis Rampton, and Bob Todd, but you've a special memory of Uproar in the House, right?
Yes, well, I always seem to land up with egg on my face, but there was one occasion in Uproar in the House when I really had the egg on my face, but you actually were waiting for your entrance. You didn't see what happened. I had a moment where Sheila rang the bell of the house to come in, and Joan Sims, my wife, had given me a whole lot of hot plates, and I used to do some mad business trying to get them out of my hands and eventually put them down. But in the process, what I didn't know, I'd ripped all my fly buttons undone. And I stood then facing the audience like that, and they roared uproariously. And I couldn't make out why, so I looked down and saw that my underpants were showing. Sheila was still waiting outside, wondering what was going on, so then I had to turn around and adjust my set, adjust my dress, adjusted my set as well, and don't adjust your set. There we are. Of course, there was Sheila waiting. I'm sorry I kept you waiting so long, Sheila, but, you know, I was always one for a bit of overacting once it started. It was absolutely super. But it's wonderful what you've done as Annie Sugden. Wonderful.
Thank you, Nicholas Parsons.
Thank you.
Thank you. In 1972, Sheila, you say farewell to the Whitehall and head for pastures new here in West Yorkshire to become Annie Sugden, owner of Emmerdale Farm. And here's how viewers first saw Annie with her heartthrob son, Joe.
She's coming.
No sign of him, then. He should know better than expecting. But he ought to be here for his dad's funeral.
Right now, that actor friend who plays your son, Joe, is away touring and feeling more than a little homesick for Emmerdale Farm, as we can hear now from Fraser Hines.
Hello, Sheila. I look forward to seeing you and the rest of the gang in January when I return to the farm. And one thing in particular I do miss is your Sunday cooking, because since the show began, you have been like a real mother to me. So I look forward to those Sunday lunches and then snoozing in front of your log fire while you do the washing up. Have a smashing night tonight, because you are one of England's most talented, most generous, most gifted actresses. And your agent paid me to say that. No, seriously, have a lovely evening, because I do love you and I do miss you.
Thank you, Fraser Hines. Well, clearly very much looking forward to your Yorkshire homecoming to Emmerdale Farm. But Sheila, it all started for you in 1939 with the legendary Shakespeare company of the late Sir Donald Wolford. And I'm sure you'll never forget the day when the great man himself visited your drama school in Stratford with the sole purpose of choosing a new, aspiring actress to join his company.
And Sheila, I recall to this day that my husband had no hesitation in choosing you.
It's 45 years since last you met, herself a great lady of the theatre, Rosalind Iden, Sir Donald's widow, Lady Wolfett. Lady Wolfett, Sheila learned her basic craft with you.
Yes, indeed she did. She joined us to play small parts to begin with, but we soon realized that she had the potential of a very fine technique. And I think we appeared on the stage each other together, didn't we?
Oh, we did.
In that time. But 45 years have gone by, and I am delighted at your success. And Sheila, Donald would have been delighted. And not only would he have been delighted, but very, very proud.
Thank you, Lady Wolfett. Success, Sheila, which has brought you millions of fans, among whom you've got that special favourite we saw earlier saying bye-bye to his granny as Emmerdale Farm came to a close. But right this minute with his mum, Rosina, he's here to say hello, your 2-year-old grandson, David. Sheila Mercier, this is your left.